Hello and welcome to the reading from Agastya, Purpose of Life, from the sacred discourses of Agastya Vadipadu. Today we continue the topic of joy, happiness, and contentment. Sage Agastya says, joy, happiness, pleasure, and then contentment is a state of having enough, a state of not wanting anything more, and then the state of having nothing. Now, what is joy, happiness, pleasure? So, happiness and pleasure are two more temporary types of feeling, while joy is much more deeper and it is more internal. So, happiness and pleasure are dependent on external factors. Say, for example, you desire something, you want to eat something, you eat it and you feel pleasure. Happiness, someone tells you something, they praise you, you feel happy. So, you talk about people like, oh, today she's happy. This moment she's happy. So at that moment, it's more fleeting. That state of happiness may be there for a while, but then it can change. However, joy is much more deeper. When we talk about a person as a character, we say, hey, that's a joyful person. So such a person has a much more a deeper spiritual, aspect to their life. And so you can see that they have, kind of always joyful, no matter what challenges they're facing in life. So what Appa says is, but all these three states bring in contentment, which is when you experience pleasure or happiness, there is a contentment. With joy, there is a constant contentment of already having enough. Then going to a state of, I don't want anything more. I'm actually happy with what I have. And then the final state of happiness as our joy, as we talked about before, is or contentment is having nothing and still feeling settled and not desiring anything more. And that is what spiritual aspirants would need to work towards. So here Appa says, different emotions strike man every day like waves. They have the ability to shake him, make him lose his foothold, and pull him towards the ocean of life. If one does not have the strength to return, he drowns in the ocean and struggling, drowns in the water, unable to breathe. This is a beautiful analogy of what we face every day in life. So each day, as we start a day, as we interact with other people, as we go through different experiences, whether it's external or in terms of our own body, all kinds of emotions are striking us. And nowadays, the bombardment of information that comes from, or stimuli that come from different sources is extremely high. In the olden days, we had radio, we had newspapers, but they were very limited. But now the World Wide Web, which has been a great blessing to mankind, is also a curse because information is constantly being bombarded. Think about it. You wake up, and the first number of people you're first aware of your own body. So there is something going on with your body. Now that is going to create some kind of a problem in your emotionally. It could be either good or bad. If there's a pain, then it's a bad kind of a feeling. If it's good, then it's nice. You're feeling joyful. You feel invigorated. You want to do things. Then you interact with people around you, whether it's family or people you stay with, or whether you're at work. Then we are reacting constantly to what is happening to us, right? Then that doesn't stop. We now have social media like Facebook and other things where people are constantly sending us things which will create some kind of emotional reaction in us. Even if it's a fleeting moment, even if we're just looking at something, it's like, oh, this is sad. Oh, that's nice. Oh, this is weird. So something or the other is constantly bombarding us. So that is the greatest challenge for spiritual aspirants today, because we have so much stimuli coming in from outside. How do we stay centered? So what happens when an ordinary man gets into the daily life? Each day he's so engrossed in these things. Some of them are unable to hold on to their inner joy or inner stability. So what happens? They they get shaken, like Appa says, as Appa Agastya so beautifully says. They have the ability to shake him, make him lose his foothold, and pull him towards the ocean of life. How many people are actually struggling in the ocean of life right now? Whether it is in terms of economic problems, financial problems, whether it's social problems, emotional, mental, they're constantly so engrossed in it, so caught up in this suffering, that they don't even have time to think of anything more sublime, anything more important in life, anything much more deeper in life. So if he says, Appa says, if one does not have the strength to return from the ocean of life, this is very symbolic. He drowns in the ocean and struggling, drowns in the water, unable to breathe. So such a person is so constantly caught up in all these things that are affecting him. He struggles day to day. That's why we have all these modern day mental illnesses like depression, anxiety, stress. Stress is, in fact, a beautiful contribution that modern world has given the whole world. Every human being is being bombarded with this. I mean, that's a great example of what we, humanity, have walked towards. Created so much stress in everything. Think about children. When we were children, how simple was our life? All we thought about was getting up and running around and enjoying nature, running out of the house. Today, our children are forced. We have people, society is dictating what is important, what is real happiness, instead of us choosing it. It's saying, if your child, studies hard and gets first rank or gets high grades, that is happiness. So now we are forcing the child to study hard. The child may not be interested in doing that. Maybe the child has other interests in life that are more, creative. Maybe the child wants to paint, but no, the parents now make the child sit and force it to read. So this is what is happening with modern life. So Appa says, happy is the man who sits on a rock located on a higher elevation from the ocean. He watches the fury of the waves rising from the sea from a distance and finds happiness as he watches the waves roll. Such is the man who is wise. Now, who is Appa talking about? This is again an analogy to a spiritual aspirant or a spiritually advanced person or a wise man, as we call, who's able to witness what is happening in life from a higher elevation, in the sense, higher consciousness. He notices all the turbulence that's happening around him. It is more like a movie. It's almost like watching a movie for him. Even though these things are happening, even though he's part of it, it is not affecting the inner stability that he has. Such is a man who is wise. And that is what each of us have to do. Begin to hold on to that stability through connecting to the divine consciousness of great sages like Sage Agastya and others, and maintain that stability no matter what life throws at us. In 2006, I was homeless. I didn't have money. I didn't have paperwork. I didn't have anything. I had a daughter. I was in my late 30s. I was in a foreign country, but there was joy. People used to say, she's always smiling, because I had that connection with Appa, because I had the connection with the divine, and I knew all that was temporary. It was all going to go away. And it did, because I was able to hold on to the joy, to faith. So that is what each one of us must aspire to do. No matter what kind of challenges we are facing, whether it is mental, emotional, physical, social, financial, use your discrimination. Try to do what you must do. Say, for example, if you have financial problems, then start thinking, okay, this is the income I'm getting. This is how much I can spend. So this is how much I'm going to do save so I can pay off my debts. That is where most of us get caught because we don't know where to stop. When we have financial problems, we do not know where to put a full stop. We go and start taking more debt. We want to still live the same kind of lifestyle we were living. When I did not have any money, I didn't buy anything. I simply didn't. I put a full stop. I survived with the bare base minimum. And that is what is important. We need to be able to go back to the basic minimum and be happy with that. If I have food today, I'm happy. That's all that meant to me at the time. And that is what each one of us start looking at. Because unfortunately, society keeps dictating what we must have. We want to live up to what another person is doing. All this is going to do nothing but create more and more and more, the web around us, holding us on to this life. Is that what we want? Because we can remain there. We can, try to get all the things that, we desire. But then what happens? We come back again. We carry all that karma that, results from all these actions that we're performing to get what we desire, go through all these things, continue this life, and then we come back and do this all over again. And this cycle keeps continuing. So let us think about each day, what is it that is important for me? Is the news causing me suffering? Then let me not take it to heart. It's okay. What has to happen will happen. The world is never going to get to a place where everything is perfect. There'll always be political struggle. There'll always be warfare because humanity has not understood its lessons. Even in your personal life, it's never going to be 100% happy. You're always going to have something or the other happening. But what can you do to hold on to that peace? By doing what Appa says in Valipadu, start living a righteous life, because what you put into action today defines what is going to happen to you in future or your future lives. You have no control over what has already been initiated by you in terms of creating suffering for you currently. But what you can do is manage how you react to it by not creating more karma, not creating more anger and other kind of emotions, not getting involved in it so much that you react and create more karma. So that is what Appa is talking about. Be a wise person. Each one of us can be. Now let us continue. Appa says, what causes suffering? Desire is the cause of suffering. Each person desires something in different situations. Man is happy when he gets what he desires. If he does not get what he desires, then suffering ensues. Desire may occur over materials, jewelry, one wares, and decorative items. Desire may also arise over food and consumption of food. It may be for those that one love, or for the children that a couple had. Some may even have the desire to see God too. Now, Appa is describing all the different kinds of desire. So, what is the root cause of suffering? Desire. Think about it. We came into this world. This world was created out of the desire, as we call in Hinduism. It is the desire to express and experience. Instead of experiencing and expressing as divine souls that we are, we started getting caught in the illusion of life. We got involved in the movie of this creation. Instead of sitting and watching a movie like we would, normally do, we start crying in the movie because we start identifying with what is happening on the screen. And that is exactly what is happening in real life. We are identifying ourselves with everything that is happening. That is how strong Maya is. So, spiritual aspirants, what we are trying to do is reverse this whole process. We are trying to realize our own divinity so we can be like Buddha, who was able to be part of everything, watch everything, but not be affected by it. So, what is this desire? Desire is for everything, to eat, to drink, to experience something. Usually, a lot of desire is connected with bodily pleasures, it's connected with material things. It's also connected with what the society dictates. Society today dictates what desire is. A person who's been living in a rural area without any access to internet will be very happy because he knows he's getting up, he's doing whatever work he needs to do, and he has enough food to eat, and he's a very happy man. And evening he's sitting under the tree and he's enjoying his life with his family. He too has all this, little sufferings of the body and mind, but it's not as bad as the modern man who's exposed to everything that the world is bombarding it as. One of the main culprits is, of course, movies. You look at the movies, they portray things that are not very practical. Compare the movies to our epics. Look at Ramayana and Mahabharata. They are also great stories. But how are the stories told? They are told giving us examples of what suffering or challenges man undergoes in life. Every possible aspect is shown in those stories, and then the solution is also given there of how to walk on path of dharma and how to refrain from suffering. However, what do movies do? Most of the movies show us something that is impossible to achieve. Then we also see unlimited, throwing around of wealth. So if we pay attention to all that, we are never going to be happy because we are going to want what someone else has. We are no longer going to be contented. So what can we do? We can start looking at what we have and go down to the very basics. If you already have a luxury item and you're enjoying it, enjoy it. That's what a purse is. If it's necessary, it is there, enjoy it, no problem. But don't get attached to it that when it's lost, you feel bad about it. It's gone, it's over. That phase is over. Same thing with what kind of desire we experience in childhood and youth, in our adult life, and in the geriatric stage. As I often give an example, there are a lot of people in the geriatric stage who still want to live the life of a youth. Is it possible? No. Why? Because the body doesn't allow them to do it. They can't eat the same things. They can't do the same things. Then what happens? They suffer. That is again cause of suffering. So now let's see. Up also says, some may have the desire to see God too. That too is a suffering, but that is a sublime suffering. That is the kind of suffering that Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had when he rolled around on the dirt saying, I have to see you, otherwise I cannot survive anymore. Because that kind of longing will create that kind of wavelength in us which will connect to the higher divine frequencies. So that is good desire. Now let's continue to see what Appa says. Once a person gets what he desires, he will experience happiness. So we have already discussed that happiness is a state of being, but it's very temporary. Once that source of that happiness is taken away, you're no longer happy. What gave you happiness today will not give you happiness tomorrow if you don't have it. That happiness, Appa says, may be related to the body or the mind. Happiness from physical and material things is derived only during the time one is actually experiencing them. This is something we all know, but have we really paid attention to it? Happiness from physical and material things is derived only during the time one is actually experiencing them. Because when you're not experiencing it, when you're desiring it and you're not getting it, then you're suffering. It's only as long as you have the AC on that you're going to be happy. The moment it goes and the heat is hitting you, you're going to be unhappy because your body is conditioned to do that. Let's continue. A man without self-control desires to experience these things that give him happiness repeatedly. As his desire increases, he starts to get attached to these experiences. This means that he will look for opportunities to ensure that the object of his desire is constantly available to him, whether it is person or material. What is Appa talking about? He is defining addiction. That is what it is. A man without self-control who wants the same thing, that he wants to experience the same things repeatedly, is developing a habit. He's becoming an addict. That is why people become addicted to smoking, drinking, sensual pleasures, and even gluttony. All these things arise from that, because we are not we are not able to put a full stop. We've eaten a dessert today, jamun something. We won't. If you want it every day, one day it's going to cause diabetes. Instead, we've had it today, that's fine. Next time we get it, we'll eat it. Maybe in a few months, if I want to have it, let me make it and eat it. That's okay. Appa says small desires are okay. But when you want to do it repeatedly, that is what is going to cause you a lot of suffering. Think about people who want to go gamble. Gambling itself is not a good thing because you're losing money. You're losing money which could be used for productive things for you and your family. And then you go become an addict in gambling. Then what happens? You lose everything you have. This kind of desire where you do not have self-control is a downward spiral. It's like falling down from a waterfall. Is that what you want? So then he says, the one who wants something, he look for opportunities to ensure that the object of his desire is constantly available to him, whether it is person or material. Is that what we want? We are constantly looking. That is what an addict does. He's constantly looking for these things, knowing that it is going to cause him trouble, knowing that it's going to cause him suffering. So that is where we as spiritual aspirants must begin to say, I have experienced that this is enough. Then he says, Sage Agastya says, this causes attachment, which slowly takes root and becomes deeply entrenched in his life. That is again addiction. Such a situation gives rise to the willingness to do anything to obtain the desired object at whatever the cost, material, monetary things, or relationships. That is what an addict does. He'll steal to get what he wants. A person who has sensual pleasures or of bad things will hurt another person to get what he wants. And with that, he's causing a lot of suffering to another and causing a lot of karma, future suffering to himself. Even a person who does that, who does something wrong to derive pleasure, is not really happy, because at that moment, he also has the inner being, that soul, telling him that he's doing wrong. That conscious that we have inside is not going to be silent, because the soul is divine. It knows that what is happening through the mind and body is wrong, and it will keep reminding you. So one will never derive full pleasure or happiness by doing adharmic things. That is why let us walk on the path of spirituality. To sum up, desire rises in the heart. It leads to attachment. Attachment leads to lust. There is no limit to the object that creates attachment in man. There is never an end to the enjoyment one seeks in lust. Caught in the wave of desire, slipping, losing one's balance, falling, struggling in water and shaking, the person ultimately drowns in it. This is what is happening to the modern man. No matter what is going on around us, we are constantly looking for something at the cost of everything that we possess. We lose our lives, we lose, some people get thrown into jail because they do something that's not correct. People lose their families because they're doing something that is not conducive to dharma, but they're following that unbridled desire. So ultimately what happens? People who continue with all this, drown in it. They get caught up in this ocean of life, drown in that own whirlpool that they have created themselves. So, as spiritual aspirants, let us learn what Appa is saying today. Let us learn to have contentment. Let us learn to say, this is enough. Let us start reviewing our life. Look at everything that is around you. Look at the family. Look at what you have in terms of your status, your wealth, your career, and say, where can I say this is enough? When you start putting a full stop on all these different things, unless it is necessary for you, unless it's a need, when you start letting go of want, that day you will face contentment. And that day you will have more time for your inner self, which will bring lasting joy. Or as you go higher on spiritual life, you will get in connection with the divine consciousness, which brings you that supreme joy, which is bliss, that's unparalleled in the world. When you have that, you have everything else. Nothing in the world can shake you. So that is a goal today. So let us all go back today and review and look at what we are doing, what we are looking at, what kind of stimuli is coming. Let us start becoming aware of all that. Let us start looking at this whole thing without getting attached to it. Even attachment to our own, people in our lives, that too causes suffering, because when your daughter or your son is suffering, you are suffering. So try to transmute that love into divine love, where only love comes out from you, and you do not take that suffering into you, because when you take that suffering, you are not helping the person. Instead, pray to God for help to help that person. That you can do. That creates good vibrations. When you suffer because you're thinking of somebody suffering, you're adding that suffering to that person, because it's all wavelength. Thoughts are very strong. Oh, I'm so afraid this is going to happen to my son. You are putting that thought out in the universe. Stop doing that. Instead, start replacing all these, fears and negative emotions, negative thoughts with positive all the time. So today we will stop with that. Let's go back and reflect on all that Appa has said. And that is what Valipadu is about. And let us walk on the path of Dharma, because we do not want to come back and go through all this again. Om Shri Agasteshwaraya Namaha. Thank you. See you next week.